All right, let's get into it. Today we're looking at something pretty huge, China's big plan to completely merge its transportation and energy sectors by 2040. And this is way more than just putting more EVs on the road. We're talking about a fundamental rewiring of the entire country's infrastructure. It's a massive undertaking.
So what's the big vision here? Well, by 2040, the goal is to have this fully integrated green and intelligent network. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's not just about transport and energy running side by side. The idea is to merge them into one single smart system. A system where your car doesn't just take power, it can actually talk to the grid and even help support it. It's a complete paradigm shift.
Okay, so how are they planning to pull this off? Well, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll dig into what they call the dual-track strategy. Then we'll do a reality check, see where things stand today, both the good and the bad. After that, we'll look at the actual roadmap to 2040, and we'll wrap up with the 3 big things that have to go right for this whole vision to work.
All right, first up is this core idea, the dual-track strategy. The whole plan really hinges on this. And the key thing to get is that it's not about picking one technology over another. It's about building out 2 separate but totally connected pillars of technology at the exact same time.
And here they are. These are the 2 pillars. On one hand, you've got a huge push to create a super smart charging network for all the electric cars. And on the other hand, at the same time, they're building out a national hydrogen infrastructure that's really aimed at the heavy-duty stuff. So 2 different solutions for 2 different problems, but they're designed to work together.
So let's look at the electric side first. The big idea is to turn a simple charger into, well, an intelligent energy node. This means a couple of really cool things. First is V2G, which stands for vehicle to grid. This is a game changer. It means your car can actually sell power back to the grid when it's needed most. And then there's megawatt-level supercharging. I mean, we're talking about charging speeds that could make topping up your EV almost as fast as a trip to the gas station. It's pretty wild.
Now for the other track, hydrogen. This one is all about tackling the really tough stuff. The sectors where batteries just don't cut it. Think long-haul trucks, big industrial machines. The whole strategy here is pretty straightforward, but really hard to do. They need to crush the costs, build out a massive refueling network, and figure out how to safely and efficiently pack more hydrogen onto the vehicles themselves.
Okay, so that's the grand plan. But what about right now? Let's do a quick reality check. The progress so far is, honestly, pretty impressive. But, and there's always a but, as things get bigger, the problems get a whole lot trickier. I mean, just look at this number. When it comes to charging infrastructure, the scale is just mind-boggling. They're on track for over 1.5 million fast chargers by the end of 2024. That's more than double what they were originally aiming for. It just shows you the sheer speed at which they can build this stuff out. It's really setting a new global benchmark.
But like we said, that incredible speed creates its own problems. You can't just throw hardware at this forever. The bottlenecks that are popping up now are much more complicated, much more systemic. And here's what that really means. The new roadblocks aren't about a lack of chargers, they're about logistics and, well, money. For example, trying to set up smart charging in older apartment buildings with old wiring, that's a nightmare. And even more critical is the V2G thing. For that to work, you need business models that make it worthwhile for you, the car owner, to sell power back. Right now, those models just aren't really there. So that whole virtual power plant idea, it's still mostly just an idea. And you see a really similar story on the hydrogen side. They lead the world in the number of refueling stations, no question. They've built more than anyone else, which gives them a real head start. But, you guessed it, just having the most stations doesn't mean you solve the problem. The tech itself isn't totally mature yet. If you dig a little deeper, you find some pretty big gaps in the supply chain. So the whole game is shifting now from just building more to building better. For instance, the tech for refueling with liquid hydrogen, which is much denser, it's just not there yet. A lot of the really critical gear like high-pressure compressors still has to be imported, and the storage tanks they're making domestically, they're not quite up to world-class standards. So, lots of work to do.
Okay, so that's the situation on the ground today. With all that in mind, let's look forward. Let's dig into the actual roadmap to 2040 and see how they plan to tackle these exact problems.
A huge piece of this future plan is what's called megawatt charging. And this table really shows you how far ahead China is pushing. You can see they're working with much higher voltage and current than the international standard. And what does that mean in the real world? It means charging speeds that are just insane. We're talking about getting 300 kilometers of range in about 5 minutes. That's starting to feel a lot like filling up with gas, isn't it?
And the other absolute game changer is vehicle-to-grid. The potential here is staggering. By 2040, the entire fleet of EVs could basically act as one giant virtual power plant. We're talking about the ability to provide up to 26 billion kilowatt-hours of power back to the grid every single day. To put that in perspective, that's like having several massive traditional power plants on standby, ready to go.
So how do they get there? The roadmap is basically broken into 3 chunks. From now until 2030, it's all about just building the basic foundation. Then, from 2030 to 2035, the focus shifts to scaling everything up and making it smart. And then the final stretch, to 2040, is about achieving that ultimate goal, a completely integrated, intelligent system.
And here are some of the nitty-gritty milestones for charging. Look at the V2G targets. The plan is to go from about 10% of new chargers being V2G ready in 2030 to over 80% by 2040. That's an incredibly aggressive ramp-up. At the same time, look at the power for those megawatt chargers. They're aiming for almost 4 megawatts for heavy-duty trucks. That's just a ton of power.
The hydrogen goals are just as ambitious, if not more so. The plan is to massively expand the number of stations, maybe as many as 20,000 of them by 2040. And while they're building all that, they're also laser-focused on bringing the price down at the pump to make hydrogen a real, commercially viable option.
Okay, so we've seen the vision, the current state, and the roadmap. But what's the so what? What does all this actually boil down to? Well, it really comes down to 3 key things that have to happen for any of this to work.
And really, the end game isn't about electric versus hydrogen. It's about electro-hydrogen synergy. That's a fancy way of saying they work together. Smart charging and V2G will be the backbone for all our personal cars. But for the heavy stuff, the long-haul economy, it's going to be this powerful 1-2 punch of megawatt charging and hydrogen.
So here are those 3 keys. Number 1, you have to start treating the charging network as part of the electrical grid itself, not just a bunch of plugs for cars. That's the only way V2G takes off. Number 2, you have to be smart and focus hydrogen where it makes the most sense, on heavy transport. And finally, number 3, you have to build the rules of the road. That means common standards and new business models that actually make all of this tech profitable and practical in the real world.
And this quote really sums up the whole thing perfectly. The challenge isn't just about building more stuff anymore. That was the easy part. The real challenge now is about making all the pieces of the puzzle fit together, making it all work as one big, smart, integrated system.
When you step back and look at it, this roadmap is without a doubt one of the most detailed and ambitious in the world. It's a huge, bold bet on a fully integrated future. And it really leaves you with one big question, right? Is this it? Are we looking at the blueprint that everyone else will eventually follow for a zero-carbon transportation future? It's definitely something we'll be keeping a close eye on. Thanks for tuning in.